Well, there's something new going on in the marketplace today. It's been out a while, catching a little speed to it. It's called crowdfunding. Now, sitting at that table is somebody that's gotten involved in crowdfunding, taken an active role. Ken, you jumped on this early on.
Yeah,
why don't you explain what crowdfunding is and what it can mean and how it works?
There are several pioneers in the room that have arrows. You'll see the arrows in their back. Those of us who tried to go into crowdfunding early on. The Jobs Act was the consolidation of a number of pieces of legislation intended to help you guys get money faster. JOBS stands for Jumpstart Our Business Startups. It's a small piece of legislation that did a lot of really, really important reforms that would make access to seed capital and early stage funding for small businesses much more accessible. The law was clear, it was directed. I've met and spoken with some of the authors. The SEC took it and said, well, hold it. You don't understand, your law's inappropriate. And they rewrote rules that basically negated the intent of Congress. And it'll probably take decades to see it reformed, so we're gonna have to look for new legislation. But what it basically said is that we're gonna allow the typical American to be a capitalist again. Right now, an average American is not allowed to participate in the free ownership of capital. The companies selling them the capital have to go through onerous disclosure processes to the SEC. And so typically an S1 registration today, we think probably would be $500,000. If you did a really good job, you might do it for $200,000. That's to be able to go and solicit investments from the average American. That's what crowdfunding was meant to allow. Well, the SEC said, but we have to protect the average American from these dangerous things like investing and owning capital in my neighbor's business or my best friend, you know. I'm making it a little more extreme, but the basic crowdfunding notion is that we could go on a website, we could use Facebook, we could use Twitter to promote our deal, we could go sell it to anyone. And the SEC said, that's fine, but you got to make sure that anyone you sell isn't being duped by too much of this stuff. So we're going to limit the percentage of their income they can invest. And the company is liable if that's not properly regulated. That's absolutely absurd. You know, but we are seeing efforts to create websites, and the state has passed its own crowdfunding law that's trying to find ways to streamline this process, where you could go to your Facebook and say, I'm starting a business, I want some help. Can you put, you want to buy into it, or you want to lend me money? That's what we're trying to accomplish. It's still got a long way to go.
Paula?
So Ken is definitely a leader in the space in the state and does multiple trainings around the state. But there are some other examples of crowdfunding, a little bit different flavors that I'd like to give in the state. One is Dave Reed is the Vice President of Research at Michigan Tech. And he, with some students who wrote the code, put up a website called Superior Ideas, where they have research projects that are posted, and alumni can go and donate to specific research projects. And they've already funded a handful of projects that way, and that's fantastic. And it's a nonprofit donation to the university, so it's not the equity ownership piece. There's another one, which is a company called Rebel Nell in Detroit, social entrepreneurship space. She makes jewelry. The jewelry comes off of actually graffiti that's peeled off of the walls in downtown Detroit. And it's pretty cool looking. And she funded, and by the way, and she also hires homeless people to do the work. And she funded that with Indiegogo, and then she won a couple of business plan competitions.
Yeah. Paula's point's really important, is that you can use crowdfunding for nonprofit donations, for pre-selling your new products. So you could go out and use Kickstarter to raise millions to pre-sell your products. So we're talking, yeah, my comments were limited only to financial investment.
Yeah, so to Ken's point about Kickstarter, there's a company in Ann Arbor called Avigant, and they make, they're basically goggles and headphones that it's like you're sitting in front of a surround sound high definition TV, except you're not. You have goggles and headphones on. And they won the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas this past year, and then they raised $1.5 million on Kickstarter by pre-selling product. And so those types of things, that was kind of the lead up to what Ken's talking about with the SEC rules around crowdfunding.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious around the room. I feel like we're talking to people that might know a thing or two about this. How many people are currently utilizing any crowdsourcing platforms? Raise a hand. Good. So a good number of you anyway. I've already got some experience.
Yeah, great. There's the Michigan PreSeed Fund. What is that, and how does it work, and how can I get to it?
Correct. So, so Michigan PreSeed Fund is actually relaunching PreSeed 2.0 on May 31st of this year, and we're pretty excited about it. So PreSeed requires a one-to-one match. That other match is typically an angel investor. It's in the form of a convertible note, which means it starts out as a loan, and at some point, there are multiple triggers that can occur, that can make a conversion to equity occur. And it's intended to help companies either get to where they need to go with venture funding, so that VCs typically like to watch PreSeed to see what companies are getting funded and the progress they make on 150 to 250K, and then they decide, you know, whether they're going to invest. And just, you know, just so you know, as a point of reference, the number of venture-funded companies in the state is about 8%. So of the high-tech companies that we track, 8% of those actually get venture funding. Most of those figure out a way to bootstrap, or they go directly to selling product, which is, I mean, selling to your customers is the cheapest form of capital, right?
Absolutely. Diane, did you have something you want to add to that, or?
Well, I'd like to branch out and talk a little bit about the Business Accelerator Fund, which is a program that I think is just exceptional. It's a little different than what you think of when you think about getting pre-seed funding, where you're thinking that you would, you know, take the cash as into your venture and you would use it to grow your business. Instead, the Business Accelerator Fund, which is also an MEDC program that is administered through the SBDC, is an opportunity for you to get some money to take your venture to the next milestone, but the money goes to your resource that you're using for that milestone. So for example, if you were needing to get a patent done, the Business Accelerator Fund money would pay your attorney bill to get that patent done. If you needed to finish a website or some programming, you could apply to get money to pay your programmers that are going to actually write the software. So it does have some, obviously some constraints in that you have to use it for certain types of things, and you have to be a tech venture in order to access it. But it's a fabulous program because it's not debt, it's not giving up equity, and it's getting something really tangible done with your business to get it to that next milestone, so that when you are presenting in front of investors, you can say that you've gotten this much done. And it gives you a structure for kind of vetting how you're moving forward with your business, because you're not going to get that Business Accelerator Fund money unless you really have a clear plan on where you're going.
Anybody else in the panel comment? Ken?
I'm starting to sound like the old guy here, always talking about the old days. One of the things we lost, though, from the old days, when you had family, friends, and fools as your primary resource of funding, is the commitment that created between you and the enterprise. When we do more and more backing with money from competitions, from accelerator funds, from state grants, we end up with a whole generation of walk-away startups, where it's fun, I'll give it a try, and if it fails, in fact, we tell you it's great to fail. It's great to fail, but if you gave up the drive and the motivation that having your neighbors and your uncles and your parents and your frat mate brothers' money in the deal, that is such an powerful driver that keeps entrepreneurs working in the middle of the night and on weekends, and that's important. We look at that as a really vital indicator when you do diligence on a management team. Who's in it? And are you really in it seriously, or are you just playing with opium? Other people's money.
Yep. And I'll follow on your old school
Well, we're going to
terms.
keep this at a certain level here, Ken.
I'll follow on your old school terms. I'll stay with you on the friends and the donations, and I'll put a new flair to it. At CMU Research Corporation, we've developed a crowdsourcing platform where we allow companies to go up on there and raise money from friends, family, in the form of a donation. So there are some platforms out there that also integrate in the friends and family component of it.
At Automation Alley, we have a seed fund, and we've invested in 38 companies. Max investment's $250 on the first round. We vet the application with people that are in the industry that the company's interested in engaging in. If we get a good feedback from those people that they think they're good prospects for that investment, we'll invest in the company and consider helping them along the way after initial successes.
Also MEDC funds.
And yes, that's right. Paula does work with the MEDC and does help us a great deal.